The sound of roaring engines broke the quiet night as the iron vultures rolled into the small town of Cedar Ridge. Their leader, Jackson Reaper Hale, was the kind of man people crossed the street to avoid, tall, tattooed, and carrying a presence that made the air heavy wherever he went. To most, he was just a biker with a dark past. But beneath the leather and scars, Jackson carried something no one could see, a promise he once made to his late sister that he'd protect the helpless, no matter the cost. The iron vultures stopped at Maggie's Diner, a worn-out roadside spot where the neon light flickered like a heartbeat trying to stay alive. The smell of coffee and fried bacon mixed with the scent of gasoline as the gang took their seats in the corner booth. The waitress, a young woman in her 20s with tired eyes and a forced smile, came to take their order. Her name tag read Lily. She looked fragile, her hands trembling slightly as she poured coffee into Jackson's cup. That's when he noticed it, a faint bruise peeking from under her sleeve. At first, Jackson said nothing. He had seen enough pain to recognize it instantly, the kind that didn't come from an accident. When Lily turned to walk away, her sleeve shifted higher, revealing more bruises, darker this time. His jaw tightened. He caught the eyes of his men, and they all fell silent. The diner's usual chatter seemed to fade as something heavy filled the air. When Lily came back with their food, Jackson leaned forward and said quietly, "You okay, darlin'? You look like you've had a rough night." Her eyes widened in fear. "I'm fine," she whispered quickly, glancing toward the kitchen. "Just clumsy." But Jackson had seen that look before, fear wrapped in silence. And then he saw him, a man in a stained white shirt standing behind the counter, arms crossed, glaring at Lily. The cook. He was older, with a beer belly and eyes full of cruelty. When Lily accidentally spilled a few drops of coffee, the man's glare turned into a sneer. Jackson didn't need to ask more. He knew. The bikers finished their meal in tense silence. When Lily brought the bill, Jackson placed more money on the table than the meal was worth. As she reached for it, he gently caught her wrist, careful not to hurt her. "If you ever need help," he said softly, "you find me. We ride for the ones who can't." She forced a smile, nodded, and walked away. But as the night grew darker, those bruises haunted Jackson's thoughts. He couldn't sleep. Not when he'd seen something that reminded him too much of his sister, the one he couldn't save years ago from a man who'd done worse. The next night, the iron vultures came back. The diner lights were still on, but something felt off. No Lily in sight. Only the cook, whistling as he wiped the counter. Jackson's gut twisted. He stood up and walked straight to the men. "Where's the waitress?" he asked, his voice low but sharp as steel. "She quit," the cook said, not looking up. Jackson stepped closer. "You sure about that?" The cook smirked. "Mind your business, biker. You and your thugs eat, pay, and leave. That's it." The diner fell silent. One of Jackson's men stood up, his leather jacket creaking. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jackson's knuckles cracked as he gripped the counter. Then he noticed something on the floor behind the counter, a small silver locket, smeared with a drop of blood. He recognized it. Lily had been wearing it the night before. Within seconds, Jackson vaulted over the counter and grabbed the man by his shirt. The cook stammered, but Jackson's glare froze him cold. "Where is she?" The man tried to pull free, muttering something about her running off, but his eyes betrayed him. That was all Jackson needed. That night, the iron vultures split into pairs and combed the outskirts of town. They searched the woods, the highway, abandoned sheds, until one of the bikers shouted. In a small shack behind the diner, they found Lily, bruised, scared, and shaking. She'd been hiding, terrified the cook would find her. When she saw Jackson, she broke down. He knelt beside her, his rough hand surprisingly gentle. "You're safe now," he said quietly. The next morning, the whole town woke to chaos. The police arrived to find the diner's back door smashed open, the abusive cook arrested and dragged out in cuffs. No one knew exactly what happened that night, but rumors spread fast, about the biker gang that turned into guardian angels. Lily was taken to the hospital, and Jackson visited her every day until she recovered. The townspeople, once afraid of the iron vultures, began to see them differently. The same men who once looked like outlaws now helped repair the diner, paid Lily's bills, and even stood outside her home for weeks to make sure she was safe. But the real change happened when Lily, healed and stronger, reopened Maggie's diner under a new name, Reaper's Haven. A small plaque by the door read, "For those who thought no one cared, someone always does." Jackson never wanted credit. He just rode off one evening, engines echoing through the hills, leaving behind a town forever changed. Lily often told her customers the story, how one man with a broken past became the reason she found hope again. And whenever the roar of motorcycles was heard in the distance, she'd smile softly and whisper, "That's my guardian angel, just making sure I'm okay." The message of that night spread beyond Cedar Ridge, a reminder that not all heroes wear badges or suits. Some wear leather, carry scars, and ride on two wheels, protecting those who can't protect themselves. Because sometimes, it takes the most unexpected soul to remind the world that kindness and courage can live even in the darkest of places.